speed of the Wuluan Empire's mutant forces was indeed swift, making it difficult to pinpoint their exact location through long-range means. However, their route from the sea toward Tianhai City was relatively easier to predict. This single Reaper of Love was their greeting gift to these underground races. Hopefully, it will have the desired effect. This is the first time we've deployed the Reaper of Love against them. As long as they don't fight on our home turf, they'll understand just how formidable human civilization's technology truly is. Han Shanzhua spoke coldly, yet his eyes brimmed with anticipation. Gaining the upper hand before battle even commenced would be ideal. But before long, news arrived. The Wuluan Empire's forces suffered no casualties and are closing in on Tianhai City. Though anticipated, the Wuluan Empire's overwhelming onslaught proved far from easily countered. Yet no one had foreseen that even humanity's most formidable weaponry would prove utterly ineffective against them. A collective sinking feeling gripped everyone's hearts. Just how powerful are they? Han Shanzhua murmured under his breath. Li Changong, hearing his disheartened words over the communication channel, immediately snapped, "What's so surprising about that? Given the Wuluan Empire's level of civilization, they must possess weapons no less formidable than the Reaper of Love. It's entirely reasonable that they could withstand such an attack." Zhang Yi's heart stirred upon hearing this, and he couldn't help but ask, "So you're saying they might also possess that kind of extraordinary, mass-destruction weapon?" "No. If they had one, they would have used it long ago," Shang Daowen stated with certainty. "Or, even if they possess it, they haven't used it for some unknown purpose. The tech tree itself is a truly wondrous thing. Considering the technological level and weaponry available when the Reaper of Love first emerged, it was hard to imagine humans could create weapons of such destructive power." Half a minute earlier, above the ocean, the moment they saw the meteor plummeting from the sky toward the sea, the forces of the Wuluan Empire immediately went on high alert. Having lurked within human realms for so long, they were well aware of that terrifying weapon of mass destruction and thus remained ever vigilant. Observing this, the Hades gatekeeper drew a silver metal sphere from beneath his armor. It resembled a toy, small enough to hold in one hand, with intricate perforations dotting its surface. Even he, faced with this peculiar silver sphere, displayed considerable caution. The silver armor soldiers behind him, along with the black and white commanders and the green armor warriors, instinctively sought to retreat. The Hades gatekeeper twisted the silver sphere and hurled it skyward. The instant the colossal Reaper of Love descended, the silver sphere erupted with terrifying power. Its energy, even more magnificent than the Reaper of Love, formed a dazzling celestial canopy, completely sealing the explosive force within this realm. The horrific blast, despite the vast distance, still subjected every Mist Valley mutant present to immense pressure. This generation of humans truly possesses terrifying destructive power. It stands in stark contrast to their feeble, fragile bodies. The Hades gatekeeper murmured softly as he listened to Blood Tide's words, "This generation. Are they the intelligent species? Could they be the Yihen tribe, the one God's most favored?" At this point, he shook his head. "Impossible. They are too weak, riddled with flaws. Merely failed creations." Giant Blade witnessed the power unleashed by that silver sphere, its mastery of force far surpassing that of the Reaper of Love. It was the masterpiece of the Wuluan Empire. "Marshal, why not simply wield the ancient weapon to obliterate that nation?" Giant Blade couldn't help but ask. The Hades gatekeeper shot him a cold glance, his eyes brimming with warning. Giant Blade immediately bowed his head in apology. "That power is the very root of calamity. That is precisely why our ancestors sealed it away. Our very presence in this realm is already a tremendous risk. If we overstep, we may be obliterated outright." The Hades gatekeeper gazed at the distant horizon and snorted coldly. "Dealing with them requires no forbidden power. Follow me, we will eradicate them all." No sooner had the words left his mouth than his battle armor erupted with immense propulsive force. The Hades gatekeeper transformed into a terrifying storm, hurtling straight toward Tianhai City. On the Tianhai City front, all combat-ready forces were fully mobilized. Only the most elite warriors from each region, at minimum, over 9,000 deputy captain-level mutants, were qualified to participate. Even Columbia's Sea Wolves Commando had handed wartime command authority to the mobile force member Chiyu, Xiao Liu. His promotion to Epsilon had been too recent, so he was tasked with leading the charge against the bulk of the Green Armor warriors. Xiao Liu wasted no time, activating his Metal Frenzy, ability to directly enhance the weapons of all Epsilon-level mutants present. Under his powers boost, the weapons wielded by Zhang Yi and others gained at least a 20% increase in potency. "This is all I can do for your frontline battle," Xiao Liu addressed the group before immediately leading the Special Forces members away from the main battlefield. Epsilon-level combat was beyond his capabilities. Once the weapons were enhanced, his mission was complete. Rumble. Thunderous roars echoed from the sea, yet no lightning streaked across the sky. The deafening sound came from gale-force winds and a surging tidal wave. Deep within the ocean, Cardalus and Black Tortoise had already led vast fleets of sea beasts, bobbing and sinking within the waves, awaiting a fierce and exhilarating battle against the enemy's naval forces. Far off on the horizon, a massive black line rapidly approached Tianhai City. Zhang used the intelligent devices in his combat suit to clearly identify what it was. A tsunami. A colossal wave over 200 meters high surged toward them with the intent to obliterate the entire city of Tianhai. Judging by its scale, this time it wouldn't just be Tianhai City that would be swallowed, even the surrounding cities would likely be unable to escape. Zhang Yi took a deep breath. There was no time now for sorrow over potential casualties. They must exhaust every means to defeat the incoming enemy. Black armor descended directly upon Tianhai City. From high above, he surveyed the cityscape, clearly aware of countless gazes fixed upon him. Yet these ant-like stares held no significance in Black Armor's mind. Zhang Yi and Shang Daowen stood cautiously atop the Tianhai City TV tower, their gazes sharp as swords. Both men were now on high alert, waiting only for their enemy to make its move. Without a word, the Black Armor extended his right fist toward the earth below and slammed it down with brutal force. A nearly transparent black light blossomed from his fist, coalescing into a colossal sphere that plummeted toward the earth in an instant. The immense energy made direct contact with Tianhai City's ground. Pop. Initially, there was no reaction. The force seemed to vanish into the earth, sinking deep into the ground like a stone into the sea. Yet in the next instant, a colossal force, a terrifying, suffocating shockwave, surged up from beneath the earth, roaring skyward. From the southeastern coast of Tianhai City, the earth was violently uprooted. Thick layers of soil were blown away like dust as this force charged straight from the sea toward the city's northwest. Zhang Yi's pupils contracted sharply, his breathing quickening noticeably. For the Hades gatekeeper's single punch had actually blasted the deeply buried Chaoyu base out of the East Sea coastline. That enormous base, shaken free from hundreds of meters underground, revealed itself as a colossal structure of reinforced concrete. Among Tianhai City's three remaining major bases, the Chaoyu base was situated by the sea. Unexpectedly, the Hades gatekeeper had sensed the subterranean activity and unearthed them from beneath the earth. Zhang Yi took several deep breaths. He understood that the entire Chaoyu base was finished. Inside the Chaoyu base, tens of thousands of humans still survived. Qin Jingwan led a group of special individuals there, waiting for the war to end. Yet now, their only fate was death. A pang of sorrow touched Zhang Yi's heart, but he swiftly suppressed that emotion. War inevitably claimed lives. If grief clouded his judgment, he and the remaining survivors would perish in the coming battle, and the entire Huashu kingdom might fall. Tens of thousands perished within the Chaoyu base, so easily. Everyone witnessed this scene, yet no one uttered a word, let alone offered to rescue them. They had to endure. Otherwise, their long-laid plans would come to naught. Zhang Yi took a deep breath, then raised his heavy sniper rifle, Thunderstrike, aiming it at the Hades gatekeeper. He unleashed another powerful strike. Boom! A black beam pierced through space, locking onto the Hades gatekeeper's head. But such an attack meant nothing to the terrifyingly powerful being before him. His face was concealed by a thick black mask, obscuring his expression, yet his eyes betrayed a palpable sneer. Swish! Facing Zhang Yi's attack, he not only made no attempt to evade but charged straight toward him. A black light enveloped his entire body. Colliding with Zhang Yi's attack, it shattered Zhang Yi's strike with sheer force. His speed was too fast. Zhang Yi could barely catch his figure, relying solely on the predictive power of everything follows the trail, to anticipate his next move. So fast. The speed was so staggering that Zhang Yi's expression instantly turned grave as he activated his own 100-fold acceleration. 2 seconds later, the figure of the Hades gatekeeper materialized before Zhang Yi and Shang Daowen. Facing the two, he unleashed a single, unadorned punch with overwhelming dominance. The simplest, yet most brutal form of attack. A fierce, unmatched black light erupted from his fist, forming a massive black star in the sky as it plummeted downward at incredible speed. Zhang Yi and Shang Daowen had already witnessed his earlier attack, a terrifying power capable of obliterating a 100-mile radius in a single strike. Even now, having reached the Black Chariot level, their offensive power paled in comparison. Not only was its destructive force immense, but its speed was beyond imagination. Had Zhang Yi not possessed Time's supernatural abilities, he likely wouldn't have even had a chance to open a dimensional gate and flee. Block him! Zhang Yi shouted fiercely, his gaze sharp. He raised both hands high. Instead of forming a fixed barrier around his body, the gate of 3,000 realms now all blocked the attack before him. A blinding white light erupted from Shang Daowen's body, his peerless psychic power, my eternal will. A formidable psychic barrier formed, joining Zhang Yi's dimensional gates to stand before the colossal dark star. The colossal black star descended instantly, its unstoppable might crushing over 100 of Zhang Yi's dimensional gates. Zhang Yi's expression darkened. He knew the Hades gatekeeper was formidable and had prepared thoroughly. Yet, in this renewed clash, he realized he had vastly underestimated this terrifying entity. 2 years ago, during that battle in the Mist Valley of Star Island, the Hades gatekeeper hadn't even unleashed a tenth of his true power. Hold on! Shang Daowen growled at Zhang Yi. The two of them were the primary defensive pillars of this operation. If their defenses were breached so easily, the entire plan would collapse. I know. Zhang Yi growled. As the dark stars continued their descent, chaotic light began to spiral outward from his eyes, each eye following a distinct left-right pattern. The source of a mutant's power lies within the mutant themselves. The human body is a vast treasure trove, and the power of the human heart is boundless. Therefore, rather than seeking greater power from external sources, one should first unlock their own inner potential. This was the insight Zhang Yi had gleaned from Wang Shoren's Heart Sutra. When time is absent, space reigns supreme. But when I unite the powers of time and space, how immense might the force unleashed become? Zhang Yi had gradually awakened both temporal and spatial powers, yet in the past, he had always wielded them separately, never considering their fusion. It wasn't until he reached the Black Chariot level and obtained the Heart Sutra that he began to slowly develop this combined skill. Of course I can see through the trajectory of time, but can I trace back to the origin of all things? If I could do that, wouldn't it mean I could return everything to its starting point? Including the enemy's attacks. Facing the Hades gatekeeper's overwhelmingly powerful strike, Zhang Yi finally unleashed his ability to merge time and space. Spirals of light shimmered in opposite directions within his eyes. Two forces intertwined, locking onto the attack descending from the heavens. Time-space reversal. An intangible force erupted from his eyes. No dazzling display of supernatural power erupted, yet the Hades gatekeeper's attack descending from the sky instantly began to dissolve, as if melted by some force. This was Zhang Yi's new ability, time-space reversal, capable of reversing and tracing back an enemy's attack, nullifying all offensive maneuvers. Against beings weaker than Zhang Yi, this technique could instantly nullify their abilities. Yet, facing the overwhelmingly powerful Hades gatekeeper before him, it merely succeeded in weakening the attack's potency. Nevertheless, Zhang Yi had achieved his immediate objective. After absorbing the origin of Ruan Ping and the silver armor, Thunder, Zhang Yi's ability index surged to 28,000 points. This was merely a temporary peak. The power now settled within his body would gradually fuse completely with him over the coming years. Even so, his combat strength approaching that of a white bishop, coupled with his newly mastered skill, finally allowed him and Shang Daowen to jointly block the Hades Gatekeeper's strike. Zhang Yi and Shang Daowen exchanged a glance, both eyes flashing with a look of profound relief. Though the Hades Gatekeeper before them was indeed terrifyingly powerful, they were not entirely defenseless. The Hades Gatekeeper himself seemed utterly taken aback that his attack had been blocked by two mere humans. Crossing his arms, he looked down at them with keen interest, his gaze settling firmly on Zhang Yi. Time and space, two formidable powers concentrated within a single individual. Even among our Wuluan clan, geniuses like you are few and far between. He addressed Zhang Yi in a deep, human voice. Yet it's a pity you're not one of us. Should you survive today, I might consider crafting you into a war puppet. Zhang Yi's mind flashed back to a former adversary, the Sky Dragon King. The strange appearance and the look of bitter despair on that opponent's face as he died still haunted Zhang Yi's nightmares. Zhang Yi raised his head and shouted at the Hades Gatekeeper, "Do you really think you've already won?" The Hades Gatekeeper let out a cold laugh. "You're proud of blocking a mere casual strike of mine? Is that it?" To him, that punch had been nothing more than a whim. While Zhang Yi and Shang Daowen's performance had impressed him somewhat, it was akin to an ant surviving a human's casual step. "No. We've already achieved our desired effect." A slow smile curved Zhang Yi's lips. He was never arrogant enough to believe that he and Shang Daowen alone could stop the terrifying demon before them. At the same moment, seeing the Hades Gatekeeper lured deep into Tianhai City, Ho Tu, seated in a train racing through the ethereal void, spoke slowly. "Begin." The heavenly spirits, already dispersed throughout every district surrounding Tianhai City, closed their eyes without hesitation upon receiving the command. Like stone pillars, they sank their bodies deep into the earth. The leader of the heavenly spirits, the Big Dipper Song Ming, a man in his 40s sporting a small goatee, pressed his palms together, activating his power. Divide the 8 trigrams openly, align the 9 palaces secretly. With Zhuge Wuo's aid, this formation shall not trap 1,000 troops, but bind but one foe within its confines. Within the Dragon Guardians of Xinjiang region, the most elite force comprised the 36 heavenly spirits. The leader of this special unit, Big Dipper Star Song Ming, possessed an extraordinary ability, the 9 Palace 8 formation diagram. Combined with the power of the 36 heavenly spirits, it could form a rules category, trapping ability, sealing all enemies within a bewildering array. However, this ability had a significant flaw. Activating it required the participation of numerous mutants and rendered the formation immobile. These 36 individuals might barely manage to trap a single epsilon using their abilities alone. But attempting to trap the Hades Gatekeeper would likely result in their immediate annihilation by the Gatekeeper's area of effect attacks. However, when combined with Zhang Yi's 5-member decapitation squad, the effect becomes exceptionally potent. The 9 Palace 8 formation diagram manifested as the heavenly Big Dipper star's power activated. In an instant, the skies above Tianhai City transformed. Thick, ominous clouds spread, instantly enveloping the entire city. Everything became hazy and indistinct, with only Big Dipper himself able to perceive movements within the formation. The 8 trigram formation could trap thousands of soldiers. Moreover, the trap and puzzle formations merged, causing enemies within to lose their bearings and misjudge their spatial orientation. The Hades Gatekeeper observed the celestial upheaval yet showed not a trace of surprise. Instead, he uttered an amused "oh." It seemed the sight of these insignificant humans struggling desperately brought him pleasure. Life is truly magnificent. Even the lowliest insect cherishes its existence. But, he spread his arms wide, the more you struggle, the more I savor the pleasure of obliterating a civilization. Terrifying black energy surged across the Hades Gatekeeper's arms. He now resembled a humanoid reaper of love, poised to unleash devastating power at any moment. But at that very moment, the rumble of a train suddenly echoed in his ears. The underworld gatekeeper, who had been poised to unleash an indiscriminate attack on the surrounding area and obliterate the array master, suddenly sensed a faint trace of danger. That peculiar sound triggered his vigilance. Instinctively, he unleashed a devastating punch toward the area ahead and to his left. A vast expanse of mist was instantly shattered, revealing a massive black train hurtling through the void. 4 figures crouched or stood upon the train. Chaos, Zhang Yi, Great Emperor Gochen, Li Changgong, Thunder God Purin, Alexei Ivanov, and Xidagarba King, Shang Daowen. Inside the train, a black-clad girl sat by the window, carving the rough form of the Hades gatekeeper with a chisel in her hand. Facing the Hades gatekeeper's overwhelmingly domineering strike, Zhang Yi did not intervene. Instead, the seemingly weakest, Li Changgong, charged forward. With a sharp swish, a gleaming long sword was drawn from his waist. I am heaven's will. All things in this world shall be cleaved apart by my blade. Li Changgong's sword sliced through the air. The Hades gatekeeper's overwhelming attack, when met with this unbreakable absolute rule, was instantly slashed apart. Zhang Yi's philosophy was absolute defense is the best offense. Li Changgong's philosophy was the exact opposite. He believed that offense is the best defense. When wielded skillfully, his abilities could unleash effects that defied the heavens. This was precisely why, despite possessing only 18,000 points of ability index, he was still selected for the main squad. Li Changgong's sword sliced through the air, cleaving the Hades gatekeeper's attack in two. After unleashing that strike, Zhang Yi and Shang Daowen cautiously positioned him behind the others. Though his offensive power was formidable, his defenses were woefully weak, making him an easy target for the Hades gatekeeper to instantly eliminate. Li Changgong, ever the clever one, wisely hid behind the others. A smile curled at the corners of his mouth, an uncontrollable chuckle escaping him. For the first time, shock flickered in the Hades gatekeeper's eyes. My attack was blocked? This seemed to surpass his expectations, though he quickly grasped the situation. It appears that fellow possesses some ability to nullify attacks. He fixed his gaze upon Li Changgong atop the train, speaking slowly. But all this is merely futile struggle. A terrifying black supernatural suddenly surged from his body, erupting skyward to transform into 100,000 sharp blades that densely filled the entire sky. Then, with a flick of his right hand toward the train, the sky-filling black blades plummeted downward, hurtling straight toward Zhang Yi and the others. Li Changgong was stunned. Such a dense barrage, I can't possibly block it alone. And if even a single blade struck, the terrifying force it contained would be enough to obliterate him instantly. Ghost train, transfer. Shang Daowen spoke slowly. Boom! The ghost train sliced through the void. As the sky-obscuring black sword rain closed in, it vanished like a phantom into the mist. Boom! The terrifying sword rain crashed down upon Tianhai City's land, mercilessly ravaging the earth and obliterating everything in its path. The underworld gatekeeper saw no trace of the train and sensed no spatial fluctuations. Is it a space ability user? He was correct. The ghost train's pilot was none other than Daisheng of the Heavenly Jet Star. He had already scattered spatial coordinates throughout Tianhai City. Using this 9+8 formation diagram, he could manipulate the train to traverse the void and teleport instantly to other locations. This allowed him to evade the Hades gatekeeper's attacks. Though the group had dodged the Hades gatekeeper's terrifying assault, they still trembled at the sheer power displayed. This level of power is completely beyond our reach. How on earth are we supposed to restrain him? Li Changgong voiced his inner doubts. Zhang Yi replied, rest assured. An entity of this caliber faces significant constraints even when operating on land. At the very least, he cannot unleash his full strength, and his stay won't last long. From the start, our goal wasn't to kill him. It was to buy enough time. His gaze darkened as he spoke, his tone resolute, and if things truly become irreversible, we still have one final option to try. Even as the Chaoyu base was destroyed, Zhang Yi had already instructed Yang Xinxin to notify the other two major bases to evacuate Tianhai City immediately. Even the underground shelters were no longer safe. Only by fleeing Tianhai City did they stand a chance of survival. For the war to come would likely reduce every inch of Tianhai City to the fate of plowed fields. Roger that, brother. Yang Xinxin directly relayed the order to the current leaders of Qingpu Base and Yangsheng Base. Xing Tian, Xiao Honglian, and the others had already been taken into Muyan's shadow space by Zhang Yi. The two bases were temporarily placed under the management of others. The shelters are no longer secure. Evacuate immediately. While the enemy hasn't focused their attention on you yet, flee north. You must hurry. Otherwise, everyone will die. Yang Xinxin's tone was icy cold. She didn't particularly care about the lives of others. She was merely strictly following her brother's orders. At the two bases, panic spread upon learning that the Chaoyu base had been destroyed and everyone there had perished. Yet neither Zhang Yi nor anyone else had time to spare for them. Fortunately, the bases were well prepared, stocked with numerous snow vehicles. Under the temporary commander's direction, large numbers of people were being routed toward other cities in the north. Meanwhile, aboard this ghost train, Ho-Tu was intently carving the puppet of the Hades gatekeeper. The form of the Hades gatekeeper was now fully visible to her. The power of the heavenly divine path, the enlightened eye, technique, was complete. Ho-Tu clenched the wooden figure, her eyes flickering with a sinister glow. Such a vile little puppet. Wreaking havoc everywhere, chain it up. No sooner had the words left her lips than the puppet fell from her grasp. Beneath her feet, the train car transformed into a dark, bottomless abyss. The puppet plunged into it without so much as a sound. Daixing steered the train, continuing its journey through the void, the clanking of chains echoing in his ears. Clank, clank, two colossal demon gods, the black and white impermanents, rose from the carriage. Before their immense forms, the entire train seemed like a toy. Zhang Yi and the others witnessed this scene, their hearts filled with growing anticipation. Ho-Tu had finally made her move. Zhang Yi, too, was eager to witness the power possessed by this legendary figure, said to be the foremost being of the Huashu kingdom. Rumble. The ghost train re-emerged from the void, while the black and white impermanents followed the chains of fate to stand before the gatekeeper of Hades. The 6 paths of reincarnation had spatial limitations. But with Daixing's abilities, Ho-Tu could continuously traverse the void. This allowed her to keep the Hades gatekeeper within her power's reach without revealing her position, thus avoiding an instant kill. The lower halves of the black and white impermanents were somewhat ethereal, yet their massive bodies began encircling the Hades gatekeeper, one on each side. Sensing the force of destiny locking onto him, the Hades gatekeeper struck without hesitation against the 2 colossal demon gods. 2 fists encased in armor erupted with overwhelming energy, slamming directly toward the black and white impermanents. 2 beams of light pierced the void, extending even beyond the boundaries of the 8 trigrams formation, causing the ocean to churn violently. Yet they proved utterly ineffective against the 2 demon gods. The black and white impermanents bound him with soul-binding chains. From start to finish, the Hades gatekeeper possessed no means of resistance. A heavy sense of restraint enveloped his body, as if he truly moved bound by inescapable shackles in his actions. The power of curses? I see. Hades gatekeeper smiled. Such childish abilities mean nothing to me. Even bound by 1,000 chains, I remain unmatched under heaven. After completing these actions, Ho-Tu calmly addressed Zhang Yi and the others, this is all I can do now. The rest is up to you. According to our plan, I only need for him to shed the first drop of blood. Then, the battle will end.